So I finished reading The Maid by Nita Prose. It's funny because this book gets a lot of remarks, high remarks, that sort of thing, but it was kind of lukewarm to me at the end of the day. But The Maid is one that I read. So what's going on? What happened with me and The Maid? The number one thing I think to start with is that it wasn't a bad book. We'll leave it there. I just didn't think it was all that. It had a lot of great points, and then a lot of, well, we'll put it this way. Like I said, one of the things is that I anticipated something totally different from the book. Had my eyes out on something totally different in concerns of like the whole conventions of mystery. You know, we're talking about a maid working at a Regency hotel who discovers a dead body within a locked room. All the bells and whistles. All the bells and whistles, girl. All the bells and whistles, okay? Not Bluebell ice cream, but the bells and whistles. So I was like, okay, yeah, this is really exciting, okay? I was like, this is my thing right here. And I'm not saying that, you know, with these tropes that they all have to have the same resolution, the same outcome. You know, you're looking for something that's different always. They turn the screw left instead of right. But with that said, that is not exactly what the book was giving. Although those things were present, the book was much more character focused as opposed to plot focused, which I think is fair. That's fine. Like, I really don't have a problem with that, none whatsoever. But the point is that I was thinking that there was something more original that was going to come out of the plot focused elements. However, the original thing that did come out of the book had something to do maybe with the character of the protagonist, her name is Molly the Maid. Now, she's not exactly totally unique. There's been numerous times in which, you know, writers, especially from the past, have used maids as sometimes protagonists. But nonetheless, we're talking about a character who, I want to use the word eccentric, but I think that there's this minor or mild suggestiveness of a mental disorder. Now, if it's, I'm only suspecting this. It's not really necessarily there. Maybe not even subtly there. Someone who is much more familiar with this would probably be best to find all of those different telltale signs and angles to place an assured and definite diagnosis for the character of Molly the Maid. But while I was reading the book, that kind of was a ringing bell saying to me that maybe there's just something not completely, or her thought process is interrupted in a sense. And that's because Molly the Maid is severely naive. She's a character who was raised by her grandmother, and her grandmother was a domestic maid. But at this point within the book, her grandmother is gone. They live together in this apartment. Her grandmother's been passed. And Molly never knew her father, never knew her mother really. She has pictures of her mother, but both of her parents are deceased as well. So at the beginning of the book, Molly is very much isolated, very much alone. And like I said, she's a character who exudes a lot of naivety. She's naive. People get over on her easily. Her boyfriend stole money from her and her family. You know, the people that she worked with, her co-workers, they are known to, you know, run right over her. She's easily duped by people or individuals who she feels like she has a connection or a friendship with. So she's a susceptible character to a lot of the much more dark-natured people who surround her within this book. And what's interesting about her in this sense is that while she may not fully express, you know, her frustration with these characters, because she does recognize when things are not correctly aligned with, you know, what her expectations of these individuals were, she goes into her head and she murders them mentally. Which I thought was funny. You know, one character, she was like, I would just love to spray bleach in her face. One character, she had a moment of exposition in which she saw herself strangling a character, you know. In her head, it's like a murderous venture going on. And so I'm thinking to myself from a technical standpoint, like, oh, this man was murdered in his room. Molly may not be all that she's cracked out to be, or more. She's a character who's easily unassuming and You can underestimate her. So I'm like, oh, so that's like more layers being tacked onto the character of Molly. But I can't, of course, give the details of what that resolution was in terms of that death, but it's one of those things that kept me reading, despite the fact that it wasn't giving me exactly what it is that I thought I was getting. So that kept me reading, that guessing of where exactly was the author going with this character of Molly, because we know that she is, like I said, naive, but we know it inside of her head. She's a little bit more dangerous than we really, or threatening than you would think. But that's what kept me reading, despite everything else. I liked that those moments of being with Molly, I guess you could say, just watching her go about her routine. And so, with that being said, I connected with Molly, or she resonated with me a lot in certain areas, such as how she is, just steeped in responsibility. I'm the same way. Like, if I gotta be here at this time, we gotta go. Let's see, do it. A lot didn't get into Molly's way. Felt very isolated. That's definitely my life. Feeling isolated, or feeling much more like, not isolated, but more like just don't quite fit in. And I've never fit in anywhere, like never, ever, ever. And don't ever try to, for real, to be honest with you. So I'm scratching my back. But, and I guess the difference is that Molly tries to, and my ASS don't, okay? But, so those little things I really connected with Molly. But the thing that I did connect with is how she kept those much more threatening thoughts in her head. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to go out and do, express those thoughts forward to somebody. But I'm a boundaries type of person. And I would tell you right here and right now, what you doing to me is not going to fly. It's not going to work. I'm not going to get with it. Either I'm going to tell you right off, or you're going to just watch me disappear. So that was one of the things that frustrated me a little bit about Molly, because I was like, girl, look at what they're saying to you. Look at what they just did to you. You need to handle them right there, right then and right now. But she wouldn't. She would go and recede into her head to do all of her expression of her frustrations with individuals. But either way, regardless of even this or that, that key focus, that key lens on the character of Molly the Maid is what kept me reading. Because outside of that, when it came to the mystery and when it came to watching these very devious, nefarious, and dark-hearted characters surrounding her, it was easy for me to find a place where I could go, I don't want to deal with this anymore, because I don't see how these people act this way, and I don't see how Molly takes it. That was an easy out. But I kept reading because I still was engaged with Molly's perspective, her point of view, and just seeing exactly what it is that we were going to arrive at with this character in terms of both her development as well, what is it that's really about Molly, and in terms of the mystery, was Molly, how much of Molly's involvement with this mystery are we going to receive at the end of the book. So I ended up reading The Maid. I think it was fairly decent. Another thing I want to point out about this book, there may be some mild or moderate moral frustrations you may have as the reader. You're gonna probably get entangled with, what's fair and what's not fair. Those sort of things may come into play. But at the end of the day, I think that if you can just kind of be patient with the character of Molly, you can both be entertained by her and keep yourself steadfast with her in terms of finding the direction in which the author is going to take her, in terms of, like I said, both herself as well as her role within the actual mystery. Because there's a lot that comes at Molly that is both unexpected, stuff that she's not exactly prepared for, but stuff that just generally being herself, she managed to circumvent until she can, properly address certain issues. One being her being arrested. You wouldn't that's one thing. So The Maid was a decent read. Clearly the defining point of this book is the character of Molly. The mystery part, not so much. As a matter of fact, maybe about 100 pages into the book, or maybe even 80 pages into the book, it started to dip a little bit for me, but then it picked back up once she was arrested. So yeah, I'm giving that part away. Molly was arrested, okay? So it's good. Now, I also want to say that in regards to the mystery, here's another thing I want to say. In regards to the mystery and my expectations of the book, the resolution or the culprit was a cheat. I'm giving it a pass. I'm giving this book a pass on that, because it's clear that the driving force of the entire story is a character focused experience. That's much higher than the mystery. But with the mystery, it was a cheat. But anyway, the Maid was fun. I almost want to say I want another one, but it's like, nah, I don't see that happening.